Welcome to Fool's Key Tarot. I'm Ben, and this is a daily reading for Monday, June 16th, 2025. I'm going to draw 3 cards, one for the past, one for the present, and one for the future. So let's see what the cards have in store for us today. We start with the Hierophant reversed in the past. In the present, we have the Devil reversed. And in the future, we have the Ace of Wands upright. So let's begin with the past here. It seems to me like there may have been the rebuke of an authority. Some kind of leader or social norm was overturned or challenged. Maybe you acted out against the norms or desires of a group. There may have been a particular leader who you went against the wishes of. But if that's the case, this leader has a lot of followers who help enforce their rule willingly. So this isn't the example of one strong ruler who's just telling you what to do. This is a group who has a strong sense of identity, of group identity. And there might be a figurehead, but the true power in the group relies in its width. So some kind of norm or taboo was broken or challenged. And you may have been the one challenging. You may have just witnessed the challenge, and maybe it caused you to question things about this group and what they stand for. Or maybe you wanted to challenge this person. Maybe you're in the group and you felt like this challenge was inappropriate or wrong. And I don't know if the challenge was good or bad. I don't think the cards are going to tell us that exactly. But whichever side of it you were on, I see a group that has maybe some inner turmoil as one or more members question the leader or question the norms or the rules. But probably these rules are soft rules that are unwritten and informal, rather than specific laws that you can find written down in a book somewhere. With the Hierophant, this tends to be more about norms and taboos or general conventions rather than specific quantified rules. But of course, sometimes those norms and taboos become written down, and so the line is blurry. Let's see how this goes forward. So the Devil reversed is going to have to do with clinging tightly to something, too tightly, probably. Something that maybe isn't good for you or has outlived its purpose, but you stay attached to it strongly anyways, and maybe even refuse to look at alternatives. So I think that when there's a challenge to the order, you or the group turtled up and said, hey, these questions aren't appropriate. Nobody should be questioning this. Nobody should be going against the grain here. And so I'm not sure which side of it you were on. That might be something that you have to figure out for yourself. But the reaction of the group and most people in it was to cling more tightly to their rules and their customs and their norms rather than to go with the questioner. So I think that whenever these boundaries were pushed, it had kind of an opposite reaction where people clung more closely to these rules and norms as a result of them being questioned, rather than going with the questioner and saying, oh yeah, good point. You raise a good question here. Let's examine this together. Let's maybe all wonder if we should be thinking differently or acting differently. That may have been the intent behind transcending these rules, but that's not what happened. Other people doubled down and said, if you're going to question these rules, then I am going to stick to these rules even harder. So you could be somebody who's doing the questioning, and then you feel the group tightening around you and not going along with your independent path. Or maybe you are part of the majority here who, in the face of having your norms questioned, you find yourself just clinging tighter to them. And with the Devil reversed here, there's definitely a sense of doing this unquestioningly. So it's a defensive posture. It's maybe an irrational response. Because somebody is questioning something that you have always assumed to be true, then you cling tighter to it just as a gut reaction. Not necessarily because it is true and you want to stand up for it passionately and for a really well-reasoned set of circumstances. Instead, it's just a gut level, hey, someone is questioning it, so I'm going to double down and get behind it more because I don't like the fact that they're questioning it. So whether or not it's fair to questioning these rules and whether these rules maybe need to change, there's definitely a sense of the closing of the flanks. The group comes closer together and doesn't even want to consider this new idea. They don't even want to think about how they might change. They just want to cling to the old way because it's what they're used to and it's comfortable, and it doesn't require asking any questions that might ultimately lead to something good, but that are going to be uncomfortable in the moment. So we have a group in the past who experienced some kind of challenge to the authority or challenge to the status quo. And as a result, the group didn't really consider this challenge and think about it thoughtfully. Instead, they just doubled down on their old norms and rejected these new ideas. So you could be on either side of this, either the rejecting group or the group who's doing the questioning. And that is going to change your experience of this. But either way, there is a group who responds negatively to independence, and instead of going along with it and opening their minds, they close their minds and they cling harder to their basic truths and basic assumptions without ever letting them be questioned and without ever even entertaining the idea that this new person might have a point. They don't even want to consider it. They don't even want to give it the time of day. They just want to cling to the ways that things were done and ignore any possible new perspective. So if you're in the group and you are going with the flow and rejecting these outsiders, then this doesn't mean the outsiders are right. It just means that it might be worth at least thinking about if they have a point. And maybe there's at least something that they could add that would mean that the group could either change a little bit or just add more meaning to the group's traditions, even if you don't accept this new path. Or maybe these disruptors really have a good point and the group is just ignoring that. Either way could be true, but it's definitely not good to just reflexively reject someone's ideas out of hand just because it would be hard or uncomfortable to ask those questions. They're probably good questions worth answering. You might answer in the negative and say, well, this is why we don't do it that way. But at least that way you had to think through the reasoning rather than just reflexively saying, no, it's just wrong. Why? I'm not going to explain it. I just know it's wrong. You want to be able to explain it. You want to be able to understand. Because even if somebody makes a point that is wrong or bad, sometimes thinking through the reasoning for why that reasoning is wrong will be helpful to you to make your own beliefs more solid because you've thought through alternatives more carefully. So whoever is rocking the boat here, they're not necessarily correct. They might be. But even if they're wrong, their ideas should be considered, if only for the purpose of refuting them in a way that is intelligent and thoughtful, because that will contribute to the group's understanding of itself. And right now, that's not what's happening. Instead, the group is rejecting their ideas. So that's the present. Right now, the group is in the process of closing rank, closing their minds, not giving this disturbance or this new idea any room to grow or to consider, instead just trying to shut it out. That might mean kicking out the members who are questioning it. It could be giving a punishment, telling them to be quiet, telling them to just accept what's going on. We don't want to hear it. We're not going to consider it. We're not going to even think about it. And so right now, that's what's happening. In the past, these questions were raised. By now, the group is in the stance of rejection. Now let's look at the future. So here we see a new idea or a new goal taking root, just beginning. And there's definitely a sense with the Ace of Wands, a sense of passion and excitement towards this new direction. So that does make it feel like there is probably something new for the group to be doing that they are right now ignoring. So whoever has rocked the boat and questioned the basic assumptions of this group, I think they definitely have some point. That doesn't mean they're right, but something about their questioning or their ideas, there's a glimmer of truth or value in them, especially with the Ace of Wands being such a card of beginnings and the tiny sliver of a new path. I'm thinking that it's not that these new ideas need to be wholeheartedly accepted, but rather that they hint at something new and something bold, something unexpected that the group hasn't considered before. And that's why these questions seem so daunting, because you just want to shut down and cling to the old ways. And the reason for that is because if you really took these questions to heart and really tried to think about them, there might be some new truth that comes out that makes you change what's going on. And that's scary until it happens. And then once it happens, you realize with this new change, we have a new possibility. So there's some opportunity that this group has that they are not acknowledging. They're not chasing it. They don't know about it. They are shutting themselves off from this path. So you might be someone who sees this new path, and maybe that's why you raised these questions and tried to shake the boat. Maybe you don't see the path, and that's why you went along with the majority of the group and tried to shut out these upstart independent people who are questioning things and instead just clinging to the past, clinging to the old ways. That might be because you don't see this possibility. But there is a real possibility for change and for something new that could be really constructive. And as long as this group is staying insular and only listening to each other and refusing to be open to new ideas, this direction will remain elusive. That's why it's in the future, because right now the group isn't considering any of these new ideas. They're just staying shut and insular, which means they cannot yet see the Ace of Wands. They don't yet see this new possibility. And for the people who are questioning and trying to change this group somewhat, they may not see this possibility either. I think this is something unexpected that nobody really sees coming. But just asking these questions and questioning the foundations of the group could be enough to find this new direction and set things off in that way. So this group, it could be a family, it could be religion, it could be an organization, it could even just be a relationship of two people, if that relationship is long enough to have norms and conventions that the people have learned to follow over time, as many relationships do have, especially once they are older and more mature. And so this could really mean a lot of different things in terms of the scope of how many people are involved. But there's definitely a sense here of convention being overturned or questioned, and the immediate reaction in the present has been to ignore it and try to shove it away. But whoever's doing the questioning, they might not be all right in terms of their ideas. They might be mostly wrong, but the door they're opening is going to lead to something new and interesting and exciting and with a lot of potential. And if you just don't listen to them at all, you're going to miss that entirely. And so what you want to do is have an open mind and think about sometimes uncomfortable questions, because when somebody asks a question that you don't want to answer, usually it's worth trying to think through an answer to that question. Because if you reflexively don't want to answer it, it might be because you're afraid of what answering it will mean. And even when that's scary in the moment, once you do come to a good answer, then sometimes you realize that there's an opportunity there or a path that you never saw before. You never even considered it. It's not that you knew about it and thought it wasn't for you. You didn't even realize it was there. And that's what the Ace of Wands is representing, some brand new direction to go in. So there's a real chance for this group to move forward, not completely change, but find some new exciting direction to move in. And the genesis for that has to do with whatever upheaval or questioning has been going on. But the cards are saying that right now the group is trying to ignore it. And the longer that goes on, the longer you are going to miss this exciting new potential. And so you want to try to get out of that zone as fast as possible. Now, I can't tell with these cards, you might be pushing for change on the outside and meeting resistance. You might be part of the resistance on the inside. So depending on how you relate to the situation, the particular advice is going to vary. But the cards overall are definitely telling a story of having an open mind, of allowing people to question the status quo and answering those questions, even if they are wrong. Sometimes just answering the question itself can lead to surprising new directions, and those directions can lead to really exciting new possibilities that you may have never even envisioned before. So if you enjoyed this reading, then subscribe to see more, and if you'd like to learn about tarot cards or try some of my online guided readings, then head on over to foolski.com where you can check that out. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.